Usually, the new 4-star for the Lanternrite patch gets added to the free character selector, but this year the new 4-star is Illuga, who's a Nodcry character. If they give him some kind of Liyue lore connection, we might be able to choose him from the selector. Regardless, he's one of the best 4-stars we've had in a long time. Maybe the best after Riansan in 5.5. Let's have a look at his kit and how to build him and his teams. To describe his kit in one sentence, he's a Lunar-Crystallize support. To describe Lunar-Crystallize in one sentence, when you trigger a Hydro-Crystallize reaction, turrets are summoned to deal geo damage. It can't be triggered for other elements for Crystallize though, just Hydro. Going into his kit in a bit more detail, his skill is just a boring one-tap skill that deals geo damage and gives particles. You can hold it to aim it though. His burst is where his value is. It deals an instance of geo damage and gives him 21 stacks. When the on-fielder deals geo damage, Illuga consumes a stack to increase the damage. If the damage is Lunar-Crystallize, it's buffed even more. These buffs scale off his elemental mastery. When party members create a geo construct, he gets an extra 5 stacks as well, with a maximum of 15 extra stacks. For passives, he buffs the crit rate of geo damage dealt by all party members by 5% and the crit damage of geo damage dealt by all party members by 10%. When the party has Ascendant Gleam, or 2 Nodcry characters, he counts as one of them, everyone gets 50 elemental mastery. Also, for every Geo or Hydro character in the team, he increases the buff from his burst stack, scaling off his elemental mastery. Obviously, the more Geo or Hydro characters you have, the more damage, up to 3 characters. TLDR, playing with a bunch of Hydro and Geo characters, build him for elemental mastery, then pop his burst to buff the on-fielder's Geo damage and Lunar-Crystallize damage. With him being a 4-star, we can realistically get his Constellations eventually, so let's have a look at them. C1 gives him 12 energy after a geo-related reaction is triggered, which you can get once every 15 seconds. C2 is the good one. When you have stacks from his burst, for every 7 stacks consumed, he deals geo damage to an opponent. This is important because the buff from the Serenade artifact set only lasts 8 seconds after dealing damage, and as of right now, he has no other way of dealing off-field damage. This is the constellation you want to aim for. C3 and C5 increase burst and skill levels by 3, C4 buffs the on-fielder's defense by 200, C6 increases the crit rate buff from his passive to 10% and the crit damage buff to 30%. It also says it gives the party 80 elemental mastery, but it's not confirmed whether that's instead of the 50 from the passive or extra on top of it. For stats, he only needs elemental mastery and energy recharge because his damage isn't great, so I recommend elemental mastery across the board. Energy recharge stands if you're going for an elemental mastery weapon. Obviously if you're going for Fav, then try and get some crit rate rolls, but I wouldn't sacrifice the elemental mastery circlet for it. For artifacts, Serenade is going to be his best. The 2-piece gives him 20 energy recharge, the 4-piece gives the party 120 elemental mastery and 10% lunar reaction damage for 8 seconds after he deals damage. Because 8 seconds isn't long enough for your DPS's entire field time, you do want to aim for his C2 if possible, as we just talked about, because it's his only way of dealing damage off field. In terms of weapons, it's going to be Fav. It's always Fav. If you have enough of Oni's weapons in the team though, and you manage to get a lot of energy recharge from his artifact rolls, you could go with an elemental mastery weapon to drive his buffs higher. You need his burst every rotation though, so don't force an elemental mastery weapon if you don't have enough energy recharge to use the burst every rotation. Katane Crossbear is a nice middle ground. Basically, after using the skill, you lose 3 energy but you gain 15 back over the next 6 seconds. It gives 110 elemental mastery too, which is on the low side, but it's better than nothing. Let's look at teams next, because this is where it gets exciting. Quick disclaimer though, Illuga can't convert normal Crystallize into Lunar-Crystallize himself. The only 2 units that can as of right now are Columbina and Zebai. They just so happen to be his best in slots. Columbina is an off-field sub-DPS and support. She deals Hydro damage and Lunar-Crystallize damage. She also buffs the team's lunar reaction damage, so Zebai is going to deal more. And she makes it so that the wards from the Lunar-Crystallize reaction itself have a chance to deal extra instances of damage. Zebai is our first Lunar-Crystallize DPS. You use a skill to convert her normals to Geo, you spam normals to build up points. When you have enough points, you can consume them to use a special skill that deals Lunar-Crystallize damage. Just think of it as a Lunar-Crystallize version of Knight. You do want to be triggering Lunar-Crystallize a lot though, because without it, her points will be slow to build up, similar to Knight without burning. Her burst is pretty simple. It deals 2 instances of Geo damage, one is normal and another is considered Lunar-Crystallize damage. She converts Hydro-Crystallize for the entire team into Lunar-Crystallize and buffs their Lunar-Crystallize damage, scaling off her defense. The last slot is open to a bunch of different characters, but you do want to consider Sustain. Goro has Sustain in his C4 if you have it, and he's gonna buff Zeeby's defense and Geo damage. The Geo damage buff doesn't benefit the Lunar-Crystallize damage, but she still benefits from it for the rest of the kit. I like the idea of using Xingqiu and going Sustainless. He has damage mitigation and a little healing anyway, a lot of Hydro application, and also gives Columbina some HP from the Hydro Resonance. I'm not sure if Dahlia will be any good, but he's given the Hydro Resonance too, while also giving attack speed to Zeeby. This means she's hitting the 4th basic attack quicker for the Lunar-Crystallize attack, and with her going through her attacks quicker, she'll be applying Geo quicker for Lunar-Crystallize reactions. Again, that's just how it looks on paper. I'd need to actually see it before vouching for it, it's just an idea. If you're using Prototype Amber on Columbina, you can put any Geo or Hydro damage dealers in the last slot. Yelan or Chiori would be the two most obvious picks. I'm curious to see if a Navia quick swap team would work. While Columbina is best in slot here, you can play Zeeby without her. With us just getting the Hexerite buffs, you could run Mona and Albedo. If Mona's holding Prototype Amber, you won't need a healer. It's nice to get more play out of Albedo as well, given the fact so many of us chose him as our free constellation. Popping his burst gives the team elemental mastery, and if you have Mona's C1, it buffs the team's Lunar-Crystallize damage. I'm curious to see if a Lunar-Crystallize Shatter hybrid team would work. Let's say you put a Scoffia in the last slot, would the team's elemental application be good enough that you could do both Lunar-Crystallize and Shatter? Zeeby's getting a lot of elemental mastery from the team anyway, which is what Shatter damage scales off. What if you pull in Columbina and not Zeeby? You can use Navia on field with Xingqiu. She benefits from the Geo damage from Illuga's stacks and the crit rate and damage from the passive. Just in case you were wondering, we have made it so that Navia can still get stacks for a skill with Lunar-Crystallize despite not having crystallized shards. Another Geo character you could use is Ito. He benefits from everything Navia benefits from, but he can also use the defense from Illuga's C4. Noelle's an interesting option. With her being able to heal the team, you can afford to run Farina. She buffs Noelle's damage with her fanfare stacks, but also enables her to hold Marechaussee. With Farina being another fav holder, you can afford to run Noelle on a damage-orientated weapon too. Overall, I'm really happy with Illuga's kit. I just hope we can claim him for free from Lanternrite. I think he helps in bringing some less played characters back into the mix, and he's easy to build too. I just wish the off-field damage wasn't locked behind his C2 though. I dropped a Columbina guide a few days ago, and I do recommend watching that one if you're interested in Illuga. As I mentioned, he does need one of Columbina or Zeeby for the team to trigger Lunar-Crystallize, and Columbina is by far the most flexible of the two. There should be a link on screen right about now, but if not, I'll leave it in the pinned comment anyway. I've also done videos yesterday and today for Zeeby, Doran, Venti and Albedo. Subscribe if you want to see those. Also join the Discord if you want to show off your pulls, and take it easy.